Друзі, привіт! Сьогодні у нас інтерв'ю, і сьогодні дуже крутий чувак. Це Джо Філіско. І я вам нагадую, що гармоніка зробить тебе щасливим. Просто ти про це не знаєш, поки не почав грати, тому починай грати. І сьогодні те, що ти почуєш, це переверне твій світ. Це точно, тому що гармоніка дарує щастя, гармоніка makes the world better. І сьогодні це Джо Филиско. Hi, Джо.
Hello.
Hello, Joe, nice to see you.
Да, вибачайте за картинку, тому що в нас немає світла, в Ендрю немає світла, але світло є у Джо і у душі, і взагалі. Тому почнемо. Будь ласка, привітай нашого гостя і почнемо з Джейсона Річі.
Okay, Joe, you are a wonderful musician, harmonica historian, as well as technician. We love to see you here and appreciate you being with us and talking about this beautiful instrument that is called the harmonica. Thank you. So let's start our questions, right?
Да, перше питання від Джейсона Річі. Питання дуже цікаве, тому що це стосується саме Джо. Як ви визначаєте традиційний блюз? Яку епоху або період ви вважаєте традиційним і чому? Чи є темношкірі артисти, які записували сучасний фанк і рок-композиції, такі як Фредді Кінг, Джонні Тейлор, Джонні Гітар Вотсон, Джеймс Коттон у 60-х, 70-х, 80-х роках і дотепер? Тобто мається на увазі, традиційні вони чи ні? Ну і хіба це було природним розвитком музики? Хіба не Джейсону Річі задати таке розумне і стосовне питання? Дякую.
Okay, Joe, first question is from professional harmonica ferret. His name is Jason Ricci. And the question is, how do you define the traditional blues? What era or time period do you consider traditional and why? Are black artists who were making modern sounding funk and rock recordings like Freddie King, Johnny Taylor, Johnny Guitar Watson, James Cotton in the 60s, 70s and 80s till now traditional or not? Was that not a natural evolution of the music?
My expertise is in the role of the harmonica in American music. I am not qualified to speak about all of American music and funk-oriented stuff. I can tell you that my studies have concluded that the players predominantly that recorded before the mid-1960s were largely tongue block style players with more emphasis on getting sound, a big sound out of the harmonica as opposed to notes. In the mid-1960s, things changed. The harmonica became popular again in multiple genres of music, mainly in blues, by the way of Paul Butterfield, and even in country music with the increasing popularity of Charlie McCoy. And in my opinion, their thing was more note-oriented. It was more about clean single note playing. It is true that Charlie McCoy did a lot of background sessions where he was part of the band in country music, but the harmonica, to my knowledge, never played all the time. It took this role as playing occasional fills. And even Paul Butterfield, the main thing that he was doing was he was singing and playing the harmonica as a front man. He was not in the role of playing an accompanist. And I would argue that some of Paul Butterfield's weaker playing is where he played on the Fathers and Sons record as an accompanist harmonica player. Sure, it's good. Paul's a great player and a great musician, but I don't feel like it really represents what the harmonica does really well on a high level when he's in that role as an accompanist. So at that point in time, the mid-1960s, the role of the harmonica player, in my opinion, changed the most. And then after that time period, you have this harmonica player who was also a frontman singer. Sure, there's exceptions, but I really feel like that things changed an awful lot in that time period. And I know that Paul Butterfield loved traditional blues. One of the things that really was shocking to me is that when Paul Butterfield's band really made it big and played at the Newport Folk Festival, Paul Butterfield opened up with the Little Walter song Juke. It's my opinion that Paul Butterfield never had that incident where somebody sat him down as a younger player and said, if you really love Little Walter and want to do him justice, here's how you got to incorporate tongue blocking into the playing to really replicate how Little Walter plays Juke. I just don't think he ever had that. But if somebody could have explained it to him in his early years, I think he would have devoured that because of how much he loved blues. I think the idea that he was trying to have an original sound, I find that suspicious. I think he just wanted to play as good and powerfully as he could. So that mid-1960s time period, I would say, things changed the most for the harmonica. And the players before that were more tongue block driven, sound driven players. And the players after that period were more clean single note pucker players in terms of what came out of the instrument.
Thanks so much. Ендрю, скажи, будь ласка, Джо, знаєш, я коли готуюся до інтерв'ю, я придумав таку штуку, і вона працює. Я слухаю самого нашого гостя. І я зараз слухав Джо Філіско з Еріком Ноденом. Це такий класний кайф, це такий звук. Мабуть, я зрозумів для себе, що це найкраща музика, яка мені подобається. Можливо, ще це Стівен Беккер і Кріс Джонс, але те, що робить Джо з Еріком Ноденом, це крутяк, це така справжня, щира від серця музика. Ти, будь ласка, скажи, а я прочитаю наступне запитання від Джейсона.
So, Konstantin really appreciates your music, and he tried before this interview to listen more of your music and your roots duo with Eric Noden, and he was so charmed, he was so happy about you making it so sincere and so awesome. So thank you so much. From Konstantin.
Thank you. Second question from Jason. Чи є такі типи музики, які, на вашу думку, не підходять до гармоніки? І чому? І чи вважаєте, що це може змінитися з появою нових музикантів? Ну і додамо від себе, можливо, з появою якихось нових гармонік.
Okay, so question from Jason, another one. Are there types of music that you believe are not well suited for the harmonica, and why? And do you think that will change with some of the new players, and maybe with some of the new harmonicas?
I think the best way to go about answering that is to speak first about what styles are best represented by the harmonica. So the harmonica was designed to be an instrument that plays simple two-chord songs with a one chord and a five chord. Melodies like Skip to My Lou or Down in the Valley, simple Rock My Soul in the Bosom of Abraham, simple songs like that are played really, really well on the harmonica. In the South Louisiana Cajun country, they had the accordion, which was tuned basically exactly like the harmonica, and they found that they could also play a lot of melodies in the key of G on the C accordion. And so thus they sort of accidentally discovered cross-harp playing. It's very difficult to define when second position cross-harp was discovered. I would say that bluesy inhale chord was noticed by everybody, and many people found that they could just get a bluesier flavored sound and melody by making the inhale chord the 1 chord, and thus the exhale chord would become the 4 chord. This is a really good way to understand why the blues is such a magically, perfectly well-suited genre of music to be played on the harmonica. Because if you're playing a 1-chord blues or an 8-chord blues, 8-bar blues, 1-chord blues, 8-bar blues, 12-bar blues, 16-bar blues, the vast majority of the chords are available to you if you're playing in cross harp. You got the 1 chord and the 4 chord. So I would argue that the blues is magically, extremely well suited to be played on the diatonic harmonica. And so really any songs that use predominantly 1, 2, or 3 chords, which would be a 1 chord, 4 chord, and 5 chord, they tend to fit really well on the harmonica. So that encompasses a blues material, Cajun material, old time material, folk oriented material. So with that being said, I would say that in my opinion, when you start to incorporate songs with more than 3 chords, it starts to become very difficult to play to the natural built-in strengths of the harmonica. Because if the song calls for a dominant 3 chord and you're playing in cross harp, you have a lot of those half the chord tones are not readily available. So you have to really know what to try to hit, what to steer away from. And so in the bigger picture of things, while it can be done, and there are people out there doing it really well, I think it's extremely difficult to make the harmonica a convincing instrument in the genre of jazz music or music that's harmonically complex with more than 3 chord changes. It's very difficult to pull it off. The more chords you add, the more difficult it is to make the harmonica work. The exception would be if, as a player, you or somebody, your goal is to treat the harmonica as a clean single note instrument, and you have access, you have control of all 12 of the chromatic pitches, then you can pull it off and make it work reasonably good if your pitch, your bending control is good. But then I would also argue that that steers you away from the built-in strengths of the harmonica. So to me, the strengths of the harmonica are the chords that are available and the octaves that are available. The more you add additional chords to the harmonic form, the harmonic structure of the song, the less that you can play those 2 or 3 chords that are built into the harmonica, and the less you're going to be thinking about incorporating octaves and splits into your playing. That's what I got for you.
Thank you. It's interesting.
You're welcome.
Наступне запитання цікаве. від Джейсона Річі. Чи знали ви до інтерв'ю Девіда Баррета в середині 2000-х років, що Кім Вілсон грав на 100% з блокуванням язиком? Чи бачили ви це інтерв'ю і що ви про це думаєте?
Question from Jason, another one about Kim Wilson. Did you know before David Barrett's interview in the mid 2000s that Kim Wilson was not a 100% tongue blocker? Did you see the interview and what do you think?
Kim Wilson is one of the best living traditional tongue block style blues players alive today. You can listen to his record on Antone where he's playing a sideman behind Jimmy Rogers. And this was recorded 1990, 1991. It was really before he had a relationship with me. And the point being that he was playing and recorded that record on stock harmonicas. It is a brilliant record. His relationship with me has allowed him to not have to fight with harmonicas. When he gets them, they play consistently well all the time. So I want to really to make sure that people know, in my opinion, Kim Wilson is a highly accomplished player with enough technique that he could do a lot of things either way, with tongue blocking or with puckering. I had him as a guest in my harmonica class about 15 years ago, and somebody asked him that kind of question. And he was playing something, I believe it was a exaggerated bend on the 3 inhale. And he was going back and forth saying, this is tongue, this is lip, this is tongue, this is lip. And of course they sounded the same because he's that great of a player. And I thought it was wise, since he was a guest in my classroom, to not be confrontational in any such way with him about this subject. A few years ago during the pandemic, he was a guest on Dennis Grunling's online seminar thing. And I was asked to be a panelist to participate in a small way on that. And Kim played something, of course it was brilliant because he's one of the greatest living players. And when he got done playing something specific, I at that point asked him, I said, so can you do that puckering? And of course there was silence because there are certain things that you can only do if you're incorporating the tongue blocking technique to give crunch, to incorporate quickly the use of chords in between a melodic line. And there's much less things that you can only do if you're puckering, playing in that Chicago blues tradition. So I think that kind of story is taken a little bit out of context. Plus, you also have to keep in mind, in my opinion, that from the late 1960s, 1970s, and 1980s, I think the quality of harmonicas was more inconsistent. It was much easier to get a bum harmonica. And so if you were on the road and you had to stop at a music store and quickly buy some harmonicas for your gig the next couple days, if you had a mediocre harmonica, you had to deal with it. And I can hear examples from that time period from Little Walter in the late 60s and D. Ford Bailey in the 1970s. I can hear where they're fighting with the harmonica because the harmonica is so unresponsive, and they're probably changing their embouchure to make it work. So I got no problem believing that Kim comes from that world where you couldn't buy the perfect harmonica consistently. You had to deal with whatever you were given. And so his playing style could very well change based upon the harmonica that he has. That's something now, which is really great, that you can buy a really good harmonica, but that wasn't the case prior to the very early 1990s. So just some feedback. That's like a different perspective on that sort of situation. I think a lot of times players try to take this example about Kim Wilson and they use it as a talking point to say that puckering is just as important as tongue blocking in blues. And I would say that that comes from a place where people just have not done the work. If you put in a little bit of extra work, you can find that you can bend all the notes with the same amount of precision tongue blocking as you can puckering. That is what I've always found and what I stand pretty firmly as. And there's a lot of examples in history to back that kind of thing up. So do the work, really, if you're interested in blues, whereas getting a big sound, a lot of sound out of the harmonica is more important than a jazzy style of playing. Take the time and really learn to do those bends, all 10 holes, with the tongue blocking embouchure. It's worth it.
Ок. І наступні два питання, я їх об'єднаю. Коли ми почуємо ще кілька чудових, але, можливо, менш традиційних записів від Джо Філіско, менш традиційних, над якими проєктами ви зараз працюєте, якщо можна про це казати, і особливо від Джейсона. Чи знаєте ви, як сильно вас любить Джейсон?
So, before I ask the question, I wanna thank you for the answer, because both embouchures are great and the tongue blocking gives you so much texture, and I've heard from players like Mitch Kashmar that it sounds beautiful, and from you and from everybody who plays that embouchure mainly. So, next question is from Jason, another one. When will we hear some more wonderful but perhaps less traditional recordings from you, Joe? And what projects are you working on now? And another question, final one from Jason. Do you know how much Jason loves you?
Well, like with a lot of people who are in the harmonica world, the reality of trying to figure out how to keep income coming in balancing it with playing music that they love and that is fulfilling is a very, very tricky balance. I definitely have to play music that resonates with my being, with my emotional and intellectual being. I really have to do that. I am fortunate that I'm not in a situation where I have to play music for money that I don't like. I feel very fortunate about that. The pandemic changed a lot of things, and I probably will never be on the road touring again. It's just harder than ever. And it's harder than ever to make money playing music. It's harder than ever to make money selling music. And traveling is more expensive than ever. So I'll be doing a lot more stuff online, which is really good. Definitely what I'm doing and what I have been doing with Eric Noden will continue to grow. We put out a new record a year ago. We just did a live show 2 days ago online and played a lot of the songs from that. Playing music with him is immensely fulfilling. as a duo, whereas we really try to play the greatest variety of styles that we can to push the limits of what guitar, harmonica, and two voices, sometimes two harmonicas, and sometimes harmonica and kazoo, what that can do. Very, very, very fulfilling to do. I don't know about other musical projects. I had a musical project that came out a few years back during the pandemic, which was very different. I'm very proud of that project, the friendship project that I did, but it was a complete labor of love. I never made any money for doing it. It took 20 years to record it. And the reviews were interesting. Some people really liked it. One guy put a live Facebook review really raving about how good it was, but deleted it after about 24 hours. So I get mixed reviews about doing that kind of stuff. You know, it's very difficult to do music if you're the only one that likes it. You do need to kind of get some feedback and have to have some financial rewards from outside, not totally inside. But I think in addition to the stuff that I'm doing with Eric, I also release songs every year that are more etude oriented. This year, I introduced a song simply called One Chord Shuffle. I introduced a melodic study of the melody Baby Please Don't Go in 3 different levels of difficulty. So I have a lot of songs like that are studies in like old-timey music. There's a study in the old-timey D4.
I'm sorry, level of difficult or something else like When the Saints Go Marching in other ways?
A level of difficulty in terms of this is the easiest way for somebody to approach playing this song. This is an intermediate collection of techniques used in the same melody, which makes it a little bit more exciting and bigger, and an advanced approach to playing a song and playing a melody. I also have a lot of different grooves. This year I introduced the Sonny Terry groove, which is basically this chordal rhythm. You know, so that's like a chordal groove that's different than this chordal groove. And this one is the Mississippi groove. So having different studies in things like that is something that I've been long committed to, because I very much, if I was in a situation where I met somebody new and they said, hey, I'm a harmonica player, and I would say, well, what can you play for me? Can you play a song? Can you play a groove? Some kind of chordal rhythm? And I think harmonica players playing chordal rhythms sometimes is, I'd like to hear more of that. But I am the chord guy. I'm the chord whisperer. So I understand if not everybody is as hot about it as I am. I hope that answers the question.
Chord Whisper, cool name. Окей. Наступне питання від Назара Бардюка. Дуже цікаве питання, важливе. Можливо, для мене також це... Я шукав, і ось оцей підказ, про який запитує Назар, це те, що потрібно для тих, хто хоче навчитися грати, особливо з блокуванням язиком. Місяць тому я прослухав 6 епізодів, мені здається, там було 6 епізодів вашого підкасту з Лі Сенкі. Ви обговорювали, що повинен знати кожен гармоніст. Мені цікаво дізнатися, чи змінилася ваша думка з цього питання за 5 років, за 5 років, що пройшли. І якщо можна, Ендрю, я задав там декілька питань з приводу цього підкасту. Там є питання про дихання. Добре? Тобто, чи змінилось щось нове, з'явилося після того, як цей підкаст пройшов?
Okay, so question from one of our harmonica players in the country. His name is Nazar. A month ago, I listened to 6 episodes of your podcast with Lee Sankey. You discussed that what every harmonica player should know, and he is curious to hear if your opinion on this issue has changed in 5 years since that podcast.
No. My position has only grown stronger. Teaching harmonica has always been very important to me. And when people that have studied with me are in the area, in the building, in public playing, I want to be proud to feel like they've learned some good lessons from me. And I think that as a teacher, that not enough people have agreed upon what are the fundamentals of good harmonica playing. And I'll give you an example that a friend of mine, who's a very good player, when he first started playing, he took lessons from a well-known blues player in his area. And the first thing that they did is they sat down and tried to learn juke. So that's an example of a failure, in my opinion, because somebody with no skills, it's like taking a 5-year-old, 4-year-old kid and trying to teach them, college degree stuff. It's wrong. My opinion. It's my opinion. So the easiest things that can be done on the harmonica are playing chords. So try to figure out as many things that you can do musically with playing chords on the harmonica, different chord rhythms. When you're playing chords and trying to do chordal rhythms, then the breathing will take a different emphasis. You can really learn about how to breathe better and breathe with more accuracy and precision when you're playing the harmonica by just focusing on playing chords. Clean single notes for beginners. And keep in mind, I've been teaching harmonica for like about 35 years. Some people just take a while to learn to play clean single notes. They can't do it on the first lesson or necessarily the first 5 lessons. So as a teacher, you want to be able to point out that it's important, but it's not a priority. So if as a teacher you have a lot of things that people can do musically, aside from focusing on clean single notes, that to me is a recipe for success. You're taking the skill that people have and you're pointing them into a direction of being musical. So with that being said, trying to focus on bending notes very early in somebody's playing, in my experience and in my opinion, that has bad idea written all over it. Red flag, where's my red flag at? It's bad idea. Because bending is, it can be a very advanced skill, and you just really want to make sure that when people are bending, that they're doing it as musically as they possibly can. So during the pandemic, I came up with this concept of 5 fundamentals that really focus on simpler things, not so much on the advanced things. Everybody agrees on what advanced harmonica playing is. And if a 5-year-old kid wants to go through the school system, they should start with kindergarten or first grade and go gradually through learning. Going to and learning college stuff right from the beginning is not a good idea. It doesn't build good musicality and encourage people. So that's the 5 fundamentals. And I feel like they're very good. There's a lot of wisdom in them. I may revise and change basic things, but I'm very proud of identifying that stuff. Yeah.
Зенкс, питання з того підкасту. Мене не те, щоб не зрозуміло. Там я усім раджу подивитися і послухати. Це дуже класно. Там все поетапово там зрозуміло. Але там акцентується питання на диханні, це я розумію. Але там така штука була. Дихання протилежне, як навчають професійних вокалістів. Ось тут, я розумію, що є 3 етапи. 1, 2, 3 етап and empty, як Андрій скаже мені, коли спустошені легені, да? Але там така була фраза, що це малось на увазі, що протилежне, як навчають професійних вокалістів, тобто дихати, грати. Я розумію, тому що ми граємо більше на вдих. І, тобто питання саме в цьому, да? Тобто наша перевага Харперів в тому, що ми робимо це на вдих. І це відрізняє від професійних вокалістів, так?
Yes, so Kostya asked if I'm correctly translating about he didn't understand the aspect of breathing on harmonica in terms of the difference between the vocalists. So on harmonica we like breathe on inhale, and singers and vocalists they also make sound, but on the exhale.
That is 100% correct. So the bluesy styles, when you're playing especially second position and third position, are largely inhale driven. And learning to control the inhale breath on the harmonica is not an intuitive thing. It's not a natural thing to do. It takes time. When you're singing or playing an instrument like a horn or woodwinds, filling up with air and releasing the air slowly and gradually is a very natural thing to do until you're empty. But emptying yourself and filling up very slowly and gradually is not an intuitive thing to do. And I would argue that if you listen to a lot of Little Walter's harmonica playing, Sad Hours is an example, Blue Midnight is an example, sometimes more than 90% of what you are hearing is only inhaling. And so learning to deflate oneself to being empty and let that air in slowly and gradually in the exact opposite manner that a great singer or great horn player would do, it takes a lot of practice. And a lot of harmonica players, it takes them years to begin to enter into that sort of breathing. So one of the fundamentals is active blues breathing. The idea that I'm going to go into a phrase with a lot of inhale, so I need to deflate myself before doing so. That kind of breathing awareness is not something people pay attention to. Matter of fact, I've rarely ever heard anybody talk about it in all the years that I've attended harmonica workshops and harmonica focused things. People speak about breathing that You can make sounds inhaling and exhaling on the harmonica, so you don't need to even think about breathing. You just breathe and everything happens. Well, that's not going to ever get you to understand the astonishing breath control of Sonny Boy 1, Little Walter, Sonny Boy Terry, Sonny Terry. You're not ever going to figure that stuff out unless you look at breathing differently.
Thank you very much. Андрій, ще одна штука. Я вважаю, що гра з блокуванням язиком – це найкрутіше, що може бути. Тому що це створює такий 3D-ефект. Тобто, коли грає не одна людина, а декілька. Але з приводу цього підкасту, сам Джо казав, що якщо би повернутися до початку, то я би почав вивчати гру з блокуванням язиком. Tongue block. Але в мене таке питання, як тоді зараз робити, найкраще прямо зараз починати з вивчення гармоніки з блокування язиком, і, як на мене, більш складний такий шлях, коли бендити з блокуванням язиком. Чи навчитися грати з блокуванням язиком, потім грати блокуванням губами і бендити, і навчитися бендити. Отут я розумію, що всі грають, всі виконують бенди, але як більш, на думку Джо, от зараз? Така сумбурне запитання, але просто я переслухав підкаст, і мені було б цікаво, да.
So, regarding podcasts with you and Lee Sankey, another question from Konstantin it's about how to start playing, what embouchure. So Kostya asks if you should start playing tongue blocking and then switch to lip pursing for bending, or go tongue block bending all the way. So what should be done?
Well, for years, I've just decided that if people have two embouchures, it ends up being too confusing because it's my experience that it's too confusing. And I have had what I believe to be tremendous success just encouraging people to play using tongue blocking right from the very beginning. And then as the tongue blocking becomes to, let's say, solidify, it becomes solid and consistent, the bending kind of grows out of that sort of thing. I guess I would say that for somebody that's learning to play the harmonica, I would rather hear them play this sort of thing initially. And I would like to hear this. If somebody's a newer player to playing blues, I'd like to hear this. And that right there is a very heavy yet recognizable blues sound. And if, as a beginning, intermediate kind of player, if you can't do that, I don't know, that just seems wrong to me. It's like that everybody that is trying to play blues, that kind of sound should be one of the very first things that they learn to play as a clean single note riff. I mean, I can even simplify it more and just go. You know, I speak about adding layers to things. That simple thing can be played very intricately and much more advanced by going. You know, that's pretty complicated to play with that sort of nuance in there. And bending is important. I just don't think that bending should be prioritized Especially bending should be never prioritized over being musical. To my advice to anybody who plays the harmonica is make sure that you're always focusing on being as musical as you can. I'm going to make a parallel that I think that it's reasonable to say that playing the harmonica should be about making music in the same way that learning to cook should be about making food that looks and tastes good. If you're learning to cook, but nobody likes what you're cooking, that's kind of a red flag. It's like, man, if you can't cook something that people like, you're missing the boat. And if you're learning to play the harmonica and you can't do something that people think is musical, same thing. It should always be about the music, not about playing. So I feel very strongly when I say there's a difference between playing the harmonica and playing music on the harmonica. It doesn't matter what genre you're doing. It could be blues, it could be folk, it could be Cajun, it could be old time, but there's a difference between making music and playing the instrument. So keep it about the music.
Дякуємо за
I absolutely agree
чудовий,
that
да.
Yep.
І пораду,
That's,
і
when you
порівняння
play-
дуже гарне, да? Добре, питання від Брендана Пауера. З того, що ми можемо запитати. Чи не могли б ви розповісти нам про стилі гри на діатонічній гармоніці до війни? 20-ті, 30-ті, 1940-ті роки, адже ви один з провідних експертів цієї епохи. Так, да, це цікаво. 20-ті, 30-ті, 40-ті. В мене було приблизно таке саме питання, тому що я так розумію, що носіїв музики таких немає, вони є тільки в Джо. 20-ті, 30-ті, 40-ті стилі гри провідні. Да.
Question, another one from Brandon Power, professional harmonica player and innovator. Could you please tell us about the early pre-war styles of playing the diatonic harmonica, the 1920s, 30s, and 40s? After all, you are one of the leading experts on this era.
That's a very vague question. There's way too much to be said about it. But I will say that if you look at earlier approaches to playing the harmonica, then the solo unaccompanied approach was a lot more significant then than it is today. So back 100 years ago, you would hear many players have a solo unaccompanied harmonica train imitation, which I happen to believe is one of the most important things for any harmonica player to learn. They would also have, almost everybody had a fox chase or lost John style of playing. That's a chordal groove with that incorporates tongue blocking in, that might have a melodic sense to it, but it was more of a chordal groove that didn't have increases or decreases in the tempo. It tended to remain at one rhythm. D. Ford Bailey had his fox chase, and what was the name of that other song? There's a Dixie Flyer Blues are two examples of fox chase and Lost John. Palmer Maccabee had his Lost Boy Blues. Henry Witter had Rain Crow Bill and his old-time Southern fox chase. A lot of players had that kind of thing going on. In addition to that, there was also melodic playing, especially with players like D. Ford Bailey, Kyle Wooten, Freeman Stowers, to a lesser degree Sonny Terry, but a little bit. So the player would play a melody and then embellish the melody from one chorus to another. You could almost always tell what the song was because there would be variations of the melody going from the lower octave to the higher octave with different rhythmic accompaniment behind it from one octave. Sometimes there would be busier flourishes going on, but you always knew what it was. D. Ford Bailey was one of the best of that proponent of playing, which I am very passionate about. I will probably always rather strongly oppose anyone that says anything negative about D. Ford Bailey and his approach to playing the harmonica, because I really wish there were more people attempting to recreate what D. Ford Bailey did back at that time period. I feel like that is one of the lost arts of playing the harmonica in that D. Ford Bailey style. I try to do that in some of the songs that I've written. I've done that in a lot of the holiday Christmas songs that I've arranged and done kind of fun unofficial releases of that I've posted on YouTube and on Facebook. But the arrangements are pretty complex. I would say that one of the things people don't get right about the early styles like D. Ford Bailey is they don't realize the layers that are involved in playing that. To me, D. Ford Bailey is kind of like the Chet Atkins of the harmonica. If you understand all the layers and complexities of melody, harmony, and rhythm that goes on in that approach to guitar playing, you can better understand what it was with D. Ford Bailey and all the multiple layers of what he was doing in the arrangements that he played and recorded. So that's a quick way to summarize a lot of the early pre-war styles, which you don't tend to hear that much nowadays. People are more interested with playing some notes or riffs and buying a amp and effects pedals as opposed to getting the most sound they can out of just the harmonica.
Скільки треба всього ще, Андрій, нам послухати? Питання від найкращого гравця з холдером, на мою думку, Грегорі Хомерта. Я зачитаю декілька питань, Ендрю, якщо можна, щоб не втрачати час, ти потім туди дублюй, і він надіслав декілька запитань. На вашу думку, що робить людину справді хорошим гармоністом, харпером, або навпаки? Що таке хороша гармоніка та хороша гра, гарна гра з точки зору музичного смаку? Це перше запитання. Далі, Грегорі помітив, що технічно можна використовувати дуже складні бенди, ну, Джо може використовувати, але майже ніколи їх не використовує. І цікаво, чому. Ну і питання, що ви думаєте про горлове вібрато? Ну і найважливіше, можливо, таке цікаве запитання, якісь особливі поради або думки щодо низьких гармонік, гри на них, низько налаштованих, низьких фа, низьких ре тощо. Будь ласка, ну, дозуй, будь ласка, та спілкуйся, щоб ми з тобою витратили час правильно.
So, yeah, a lot of questions from Gregory Homert. You know Gregory, Joe?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I call him guitar monica player because he plays with the rack and he's singing right now, which is so cool.
He's Kim Terman, guitarmanist.
Yes, and he's really cool. And so let's try and do like a blitz question with him. So, what, in your opinion, makes a person a really good harmonica player, or the other way around? What is a good harmonica and good playing from the point of your musical taste?
I would go back to the idea of food again, that it's kind of subjective, you know. I personally, I'm not a giant fan of jazz. It doesn't speak to my being. as much as listening to a one chord heavy Mississippi hill country groove with Johnny Woods playing behind Fred McDowell. I guess I'm harmonically very uncomplex. And plus, I am very, very fascinated with how much sound and music can one person get out of one harmonica. So thus, that's where my passion with the early solo unaccompanied stuff, why I love D. Ford Bailey and Sonny Terry and Kyle Wooten and Freeman Stowers and Palmer Maccabee, why I love them so much. The interesting about Greg, because when I listen to the things that I've heard him play and record and post, that dude is a badass musician. He is a highly accomplished harmonica player. And I listen to that stuff and I think, I don't know that many people really understand how difficult that stuff is that he's doing, how much work it would take for one person to try to learn and recreate how perfectly he plays that stuff. It's really amazing to me. And I hear tremendous musicality in it, and it really makes me feel good when I hear it, because it's so purely and strictly musical. It just immediately like jars me. But I get that same feeling when I listen to Sonny Terry or when I listen to D. Ford Bailey. It's just a completely different approach to like how music makes you feel. I know maybe I understand pure harmonica technique more than anybody else alive because of the wide variety of styles that I listen to. And I know when something is very, 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 very difficult to play, for sure, I recognize it right away. But it's a perspective thing, because somebody who is highly accomplished like Greg or Jason Ricci, I understand how that is completely different than listening to how difficult it is to recreate Freeman Stower's Railroad Blues or Palmer Maccabee's Railroad Piece. It's like they're so completely different, yet they're so completely powerful in their own way. Maybe it's the difference between comparing street food with 4 or 5 star restaurant food. It's just different, they're both very powerful and very unforgettable and very fulfilling in different ways. I really like making the comparison with food, because I think a lot of people can resonate with that, especially when people try to put too much emphasis on being creative and doing something new, which is valuable. It's important. Sometimes the music pushes you into a direction of being new, but on the opposite end, there's nothing quite like a slice of old-fashioned pizza, or quite like having, a street taco. Those kind of things in their own way can be totally impossible to beat. And I think there's some parallels with music. Make the best music that you possibly can. Try to be true to yourself. Try not to let your ego dictate too much where you should go. Just make the best music that you can. And I think that's the best advice that I could give to anyone ever. Be true to yourself. Make good music.
I think that's a perfect answer. Very, very complete one. So, 3 more questions from Gregory.
Andrew, I'm sorry. Cool, як англійською порівняння? Comparison, да?
Comparison.
Comparison. It's cool comparison. Like a good teacher. It's a very cool comparison with food. with pizza, with cheese. Thank you very much.
Next question from Gregory. Questions. Gregory noticed that you can do technically very complex bends, but almost never use them. And he is very interested why is so. And he also asks, what do you think about throat vibrato? What is your approach on throat vibrato? And do you have any special advice or thoughts on low harmonicas and playing them, like low tuned, low D, low F, etc.?
Well, there's three very different questions in that. I'll start going backwards and say that people, I think, often misunderstand what the value of low harmonicas is. The low harmonicas are not as loud as the standard range of harmonicas, so you have to accept that. If you look at a violin and a cello and a bass, the lower you go, the bigger you go. But on harmonica, they stay the same size. So you have a decrease in volume. Plus the bending becomes a lot more difficult. You shouldn't expect to bend with the same range and same degree of effortlessness on a low G as you would a regular G harmonica. It's different. I think that the song that I wrote and recorded called The Rue Chase is a fantastic example of a song on a low key harmonica that is extremely musical, as much as can be on a low tuned harmonica, but there's not a single bit of bending on it. It just really exploits what the harmonica has without trying to treat it as a normal range of harmonica. It's different. It's a different beast. It's a fantastic thing to have as a part of the utility belt in the harmonica player. It's great to have those lower range harmonicas. I'm always trying to incorporate different stuff into them as part of what I do, but it's a different beast. It's not the same. The second thing was the question of vibrato. First of all, I'll say that the word vibrato and tremolo are very often used interchangeably. A vibrato tends to imply a constant fluctuation in the pitch of a sustained note, whereas a tremolo is the same thing, but it's a volume change or a tone change in the sustain of a note. As a teacher, I think that encouraging people to develop that tremolo is something that I do as soon as they can play clean single notes. That is absolute. A harmonica player should have a tremolo type of effect. It really focuses on better breathing. It steers people away from trying to play too many notes, and it makes them play one note or one sound with a long, sustained, beautiful effect. So, for example, here is whole 2 played as a clean single note with a tremolo. You can hear a nice long thing happening there. You can hear that I'm changing the tonal chamber behind it, giving it dimension. If I play that same note, but I make it dirty, how much more interesting and bluesy it is. Also with the octave splits, this is like George Harmonica Smith with Telephone Blues. This says it all right here. Well, it's interesting to me that if you play this, it's not as bluesy and compelling as what happens when you add the throat tremolo. So I think the tremolo vibrato is extremely important for people to work on and develop, because again, it makes them simplify what they're doing. It encourages people to play less notes, but put more meaning, more beauty behind the notes or the splits that they're playing. And it focuses super on breath control, really learning to breathe in a very relaxed manner. And most people that play the harmonica want to play blues. They want to play bluesier. And I think that if it can be said that by developing a better throat tremolo, you can sound bluesier, and you don't have to go out and buy a foot pedal. You can also hear that if you listen to Big Walter's 1953 recording with Jimmy DeBerry of Easy, how that powerful throat tremolo that he got in that melody just makes the song and makes it really fantastic. And then there was the third part of the question. Jeepers. What was the third part of the question?
Oh, yes. Third part was about complex bands. So you know how to do them, but you almost never use them. So why so? Gregory asks.
There are definitely songs, if you listen to the instrumental that Eric and I recorded, Sixth Sense, there's some really complicated, intricate bending in that. We recorded another instrumental, the Buckeye Rag, which has got really advanced bending in it. Let's just say that I try to figure out how I can play more chords and more sustaining in the music that I do, as opposed to playing bending for the sake of bending. I think skillful bending is one of the most powerful, haunting sounds that the harmonica can make. And I'm a huge advocate of it. But on the other hand, one of the worst sounds that the harmonica can make in the hands of an unskilled player is flat, out of tune, thin sounding bending. I've been in situations listening to harmonica players work on bending poorly, and I just have to, I almost want to run out of the room, because when it's bad, it's really, really, really bad. So I guess I'm trying to lead by example and encourage people to play more stuff that's easier, that sounds better with less effort, as opposed to playing stuff that is very difficult right from the onset. I think that's my short answer to it. Yes, thank you, Greg, for acknowledging that you hear that I have the skills to play very advanced bending. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Maybe here's a little, I hope you don't get nicked with the with copyrights, but something like this is appropriate for December. Holiday stuff there with some pretty sexy, sensual bending in it. I mean, that kind of sound is really, really hard to beat, but it's pretty difficult to do it musically. Pretty darn difficult.
Дуже добре. Ну що, встигнемо ще одне запитання задати Андрію? Можливо, від тебе. Я хотів попросити, щоб грати. Вибачте, друзі, тут... Мене чутно, так?
Yes.
Да,
Чуємо.
тому що ці окупанти вже просто немає нічого. Але нічого, бачиш, ми готові. У нас багато аккаунтів і багато камер, і багато. Але головне у нас отут усе. Запитання важливе для мене від викладача гармоніки українського Сергія Пузанова. Джо, будь ласка, розкажіть нам, наскільки важливі уроки без самої гармоніки. Наприклад, дихальне вправо, тренування язика, прослуховування записів, порівняння з практикою з самим інструментом у руках. І як ви структуруєте такі сухі уроки без гармоніки? Тобто це один професіонал до іншого. Особливо, як ви структуруєте уроки без гармоніки? Дякую.
So, Joe, how much time do we have left, approximately? So
I'm good. I'm
terms of-
having a really good time. So don't worry about it.
Okay,
Thank you.
so thank you so much.
Welcome.
We really appreciate your time. Next question, we have some harmonica teachers that asked also questions, your colleagues. So, and it's a question from one of them, Sergei Puzanov. Joe, please tell us how important are lessons without the harmonica itself? For example, breathing exercises, tongue training, attentive listening to recordings, etc., compared to practicing with the instrument in your hands? And how do you structure such dry lessons without harmonica?
That's a really good question. Of course, there's some tongue blocking things like you can practice the sideways tongue thing without a harmonica if you're driving the car or something, You just don't want to be on a bus with people sitting in front of you and going, probably not a good idea. But that kind of stuff, you can practice that kind of stuff if you're driving alone. That for some people, that's not an easy thing to do, and you can develop it without the harmonica. Definitely some of the train rhythmic stuff. So, for example, I really learned to do what I call the hard shuffle chording. That kind of stuff you can really practice with a metronome when you're driving without the harmonica, hands-free. That kind of pivots more directly into the train imitation, especially the faster stuff, being able to do So when I'm doing that, I'm very mindful also of the breath control. So I'm maintaining that with my tongue while I'm able to be totally relaxed with my breathing. I'm not distressed with my breathing. So that's something else to be focused on. If you wanted to practice without the harmonica, long inhale breaths, you could practice that also, just deflating in practice. So that's pretty difficult to do it for that sort of duration, but you don't need the harmonica to practice that kind of stuff. So it's a very good question, and there are some really cool things that you can practice without a harmonica.
And play, you told play, for example, juke without harmonica. Imagine like
Yes.
you play. Yes?
Yes, I can definitely do that. If I can see myself play it in my head, I know that I can pretty easily pick it up and play it. But that's pretty sophisticated, advanced mental imagery. I don't encourage people to do that, but I do encourage people to get the harmonica out of their mouth when they're playing. I'm a very big advocate of the train imitation. So what I would have people do is set the metronome on, breathe with the metronome, then put the harmonica in your mouth with the metronome. If you can't do it with the harmonica out of your mouth, you probably are not going to be able to do it with the harmonica in your mouth. Yeah.
Наступне запитання.
Wonderful.
Молодий, талановитий, грає у блокінгом. Цікаве питання, тому що молодий. Карен дуже хоче поговорити про тон і про те, як створювати музику через простоту. Більшість з нас, виключно з самим Кареном, постійно намагаються грати все більше і більш складно, але виходить гірше. Як ми можемо навчитися грати менше, але краще, зберігаючи виразність і красивий тон? Це питання до самого Джо. Безпосередньо він може відповісти.
Next question from our friend. We interviewed him, a young, talented harmonica player. He attended first time SPA this year. His name is Kyron Allen. I know that you might know him, Joe. And he really wants to talk about the tone aspect and how to create music through simplicity. So the question itself, most of us, including himself, are constantly trying to play more and more complex, but it turns out worse. How can we learn to play less but better while maintaining expressiveness and beautiful tone?
That's a very mature, fantastic question from a very young, talented player. I can relate to that myself because years and years ago, I thought of myself as a Howard Levy disciple, and I was trying to play music in a situation where I was really trying to play clean single notes and play in a lot of different positions and learn melodies, playing overblows and stuff. And when I recorded myself in that situation, I didn't like it. It didn't sound that. It sounded all right, but it didn't sound magical. So I go back to the idea of, you know, as a cook, you try something and you taste it. You try something and you taste it. You're a fool if you cook something and you assume it's good unless you have a lot of experience. And so I totally agree with what Kyron is pointing out, that like the fancier stuff just doesn't have that same kind of magic in it as doing something simple with a good sound, a good tone. I would also like to say, I think it's really important to review the little essay that I wrote about the 5 types of sound and 5 types of tone. I think it's really important to understand that because you can't really address tone in what it is unless you really acknowledge that there are 5 different types of sound the harmonica makes. And so I think that the answer to the question really has a lot to do with paying attention to other types of sound other than clean single notes, and try to really figure out where you can sustain more as opposed to trying to play too many fast notes, trying to incorporate notes. I think that the question is great because it's acknowledging that in many situations, playing more notes is not helping the musicality of the situation. It's trying to play less notes and make those notes more musical. A good throat tremolo or vibrato can really add. If you can play a octave split as opposed to a clean single note, you instantly get twice the sound and probably a much better tone than a clean single note. This is another reason why I'm an advocate of learning the tongue blocking, because if you play a very simple line like you have control over other sounds coming out of the harmonica if you're tongue blocking. And I always go back to the finger analogy that if you're a piano player and you play notes on the piano with a fist and one finger, yeah, sure, you can open up your hand and play other things. But if you want to play a clean single note, keep your fingers above the keys. You can play a note here. You can play a clean note here. You can play an octave. You can play a chord. And everything is readily available. I feel, and I've found, that using the tongue blocking is much more like that. Whereas if you switch to puckering, it's like going back to making a fist and sticking out one note again. Yeah, you can change, but ultimately it's easier, I've found, just using the tongue blocking. And yeah, I can do all the bending, I think, at a pretty high level with the tongue blocking. So just take the time to develop it. And kudos to you, Kyron, for recognizing that you may have a cool thing you're doing, but if it doesn't have a cool sound, then you're missing something. Really try to get the best, the biggest sound that you can out of the harmonica.
It's perfect. Karen is U-blocker, if I'm not mistaken. So he's his special embouchure, and he sounds perfect. And I hope that tongue blocking will make his sound, and I know that it will make it even better.
Наступне запитання від нашого друга з української спільноти Романа Бурди. Так, ваша композиція, компонент рідко має чітку мелодійну лінію. Так. Чому ви навмисно обираєте ритмічний акомпанемент? Що, на вашу думку, гармоніка виграє або втрачає, коли акомпанемент є ритмічним, а не мелодійним? Мені здається, Джо відповів на це, да? Давай я задам наступне запитання, Андрію, а ти задаш...
Окей.
Це цікаве питання для мене. Які нюанси гри на блюзовій гармоніці до появи мікрофонів? На вашу думку, сучасні музиканти майже повністю втратили. Які з них, на вашу думку, неможливо відтворити сьогодні? Як на мене, це цікаве запитання. Да. Дякую.
Okay, then. Next question is from our harmonica player Roman Burda, and he is also a student of David Barrett's harmonica school. So he is really fancy, I guess. And I guess I'm not sure if you answered this question, but the question is, in your composition, the accompaniment rarely carries a clear melodic line. Why do you deliberately choose a rhythmic accompaniment instead? And why do you think the harmonica gains or avoids when the backing is rhythmic rather than melodic? So it's about backing.
So when Eric and I create songs, we're really trying to, we've got some formulas that we use with the Mississippi groove or the old time, chordal rhythm, or a Cajun kind of approach. We got some formulas that we use, but we try to push it. We try to see if we can come up with new stuff that maybe nobody's done to get a big, exciting sound out of a guitar and a harmonica. Playing the harmonica, playing a melody in unison with the voice is something that people have done since jug band times. Sonny Terry, Brownie McGee certainly do that, where they're playing the melody in unison. You hear that in Chicago blues, like the Jimmy Rogers Big Walter, Walking by Myself, he's playing the melody. It's just that I think that generally works better if it's in an ensemble, if there's a lot more instruments. There's a song that we did, Eric and I recorded, called The Bird Song, which is a very much Sonny Terry, Brownie McGee thing, where I do play the melody in unison with Eric. This... know, that kind of thing. And that works in that context, but we just don't do it a lot because we're really trying to feature a lot of other things and a lot of other approaches. One of the greatest compliments that we could ever get is when people listen to us and say, wow, I can't believe that I'm only listening to two musicians, or I can't believe I listened to you and I didn't get bored. I thought blues was boring and I really enjoyed what you guys do. That to me is the best compliment that there could ever be. So you got to mix it up. You don't want to be too predictable to people. That's why we only do a little bit of that.
Joe, what's your favorite song from Solitary and Brownie McGee?
Favorite?
Favorite, yeah.
I love them both so much. I don't know what the favorite is. There's just too many that are too good. But I'm going to also say, which I think you can appreciate, is that there are songs that they do that's too much for me. It's too much harmonica. Sonny Terry is way too much crowding the vocals, and I don't like it. So it's really trying to find what they did that is beautiful and magical and steer away from where Sonny Terry is too much and he's pushing the vocals. He's not inspiring the vocalist. He's crowding the vocalist.
In my playlist, songs random, and I listened today your worst enemy. Yes, worst enemy.
Yeah,
With
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think it was Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee. It's a cool maybe.
The vocals are very much a Sonny Terry, Brownie McGee arrangement, but the low harmonica is much more like Sonny Boy 2 in similar to what he would do in Bye Bye Bird and stuff. There's that Sonny Boy 2 kind of thing happening.
Окей, Андрію, твоє запитання про спа, мені здається, буде цікавим.
Okay, but maybe let's ask another question from Roma. So, very interesting question about the pre-war harmonica blues playing. So, what nuances of pre-microphone blues harmonic playing do you think modern players have almost completely lost, and which of them are, in your view, impossible to truly recreate today?
That's actually a really difficult question. Let's just say that I'm a very big advocate of trying to be as relaxed as you can when you play. And so how you hold the harmonica and how you position your body to me is really, really important. And so I'm a very big advocate of one-handed harmonica playing. I think I did everything I played for you was one-handed. So the idea is if you're going to play and use your right hand, make sure it's very intentional. Make sure you're doing it very purposefully. You're not just in a place where you're just clamping it together and your body is in an awkward position. Really try to be purposeful with it. So if I was going to play Sonny Terry, I would do stuff probably more like so I'm using my right hand, but I'm also relaxing. I'm not like stuck in a position where I'm only playing two-handed. People should study D. Ford Bailey, who held the harmonica like this and, did all that stuff. The idea is that he's getting all this complex sound, but not doing anything with his right hand. He's not using his right hand. So I think too many people feel like how they play the harmonica is they need to hold it like this, and this is how everything is. And their body is not relaxed, and there's all this upper body tension going on. Their shoulders are raised. And I feel like that's not helpful to getting a good sound and focusing on playing in a relaxed manner when you play. If you use the right hand, have it be purposeful. That's my thoughts on that.
Perfect. Okay, so perfect. Yes, we can hear Konstantin. Yeah, I'm sure. So next question I would love to ask. It's from me, and I love history of harmonica, and so I always wondered about like specific harmonica events as well. So I'm following like World Harmonica Festival and stuff. And the question is about SPA, which is very well known in our community, and you frequently attend this event, SPA. You conduct masterclasses, you make significant contribution by sharing your experience at SPA. What was your first time experience with SPA, and what advices would you give to someone attending this event for the first time?
It's a great question, and you're asking the right guy too, because I have been going since 1990. It was unbelievable experience because to be able to be in the same room with so many players playing different styles and seeing them up close and personal is priceless for a player. Priceless. It was so life-changing that I always go back and I always volunteer at the event to help it continue along, and it's growing beautifully. My advice for somebody going the first time is pick places where you can take a quick nap. Make sure that you eat and you don't dehydrate yourself and you get enough rest. You may find that you need to take a nap in the afternoon because the festivities almost go on 24 hours. So you can really burn out and not get rest and miss some really important things. Get your rest, make sure you eat, get your hydration happening, and get ready to catch up on sleep when you get back home.
Андрій, наше традиційне запитання про челендж, але перед цим я все ж таки хотів ще одне наше традиційне питання задати. Гармоніка – нішовий інструмент, крутий, дуже класний, найулюбленіший, але нішовий. Що зробити, щоб більше людей грало на гармоніці? Ну і твоє запитання, прохання про челендж, будь ласка.
Okay. So we're going to end this interview very soon, but another question, like a general one, what do we need to embrace harmonica, because it's a very niche instrument, and to popularize it these days? So more, what do you need to do?
Well, I think the most important thing is to keep the focus on the music. Make sure that you're making the best music that you possibly can. You can play the harmonica in a situation where you're playing jazz where it doesn't fit as well, but you could be being very musical. There are some people that do it. I guess I want to advocate that people don't forget that the harmonica is a brilliant unaccompanied solo instrument. There's so much cool stuff that you can do with just the harmonica, and maybe just the harmonica in your voice. You don't need to have a full band that you're always playing in. One of the things that disappoints me is when harmonica players get stuck in a mindset where they go on stage, they play with a band, and they don't do anything until it's their time to solo. And maybe they'll do some occasional fills. I think it's much, much more than that, really. If you're a harmonica player, please learn to sing, learn some repertoire. Singing is the absolute perfect complement to playing cross harp, because when you're playing cross harp, as we talked about earlier, you're predominantly inhaling. When you're singing, you're exhaling. The two can perfectly complement each other. Eric and I did a blues boot camp a few months back where we really focused on this exact thing, where we focused on singing simple songs and accompanying yourself on the harmonica rhythmically with chords. That's something that I think many players should do. So I guess my advice is really try to keep it be about the music. Don't forget the chords are the simplest thing that can be played. Try to have your chords be very rhythmical when you play. Rhythmic precision is extremely important in roots music. You don't want to play with sloppy rhythm. Play with good rhythmical precision. Don't make it be all about the notes. Try to have good rhythm and a good sound when you play. So I think that's about the most that I can say about that.
Thank you very
Beautiful.
much. Якщо можна, все ж таки від Сашка Кудінова таке
Yes.
запитання, да. Будь ласка, уважно. Від нашого такого Соні Боя. Соні Террі, що він грає на видиху після шостого видиху? Це просто 6 чи 6 плюс 7, чи октава? Якщо це 6 або 6 плюс 7, чи грає він це з блокуванням язиком? Я думаю, ти
Yes.
правильно.
So, just now I had the desire to ask this question, and I don't know why, and Costa said it, but in this room there should be one more person, and he is really a fan of you, but he was like very, I don't know, scared, or with the fact that he doesn't have electricity right now, so be not able to fully participate. His name is Alexander, and he is a harmonica player and teacher here in Ukraine.
Is that because of the war?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, that's
Because of
terrible.
war. Because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
a
and
Dnieper, yes.
Yeah.
yeah, it's very close to the front line, and I don't have electricity right now, but hanging on to the light. And question is, his nickname is Sunny Boy, and the question is about sanitary actually. So sanitary, what does he play on the exhale after all on sixth blow? Is it just a single sixth hole blow, or is it 6 plus 7, or is it just an octave, or it's 6 or 6 plus 7 when he's playing it with stun blocking?
I have a great answer for that question, and I'm glad you gave me a little background. So I will expound upon that because it's a very important thing that I don't think many people understand, in my opinion. Back before amplified harmonica playing, this is when the career of Sonny Boy 1 and Sonny Terry started. They both started recording in 1937. They were very much sound players. When they played, their goal, in my opinion, was to get a lot of sound and a big sound out of the harmonica before amplification. When amplification started, things changed. Things changed because people could let the amp do the work for them, and they didn't have to pump it out of the harmonica acoustically. Sonny Boy 1 is the player, in my opinion, that we owe we thank for showing us how to get the most sound, the absolute biggest sounds out of the harmonica. So Sonny Boy 1, he is the guy that really pushed using splits. Certainly players did it before him, but he would play this kind of sound, which is one of the biggest, most aggressive sounds that the harmonica makes. This. And you could break that down into a single note thing with another layer, with another layer, and with another layer. And that kind of thinking, that kind of approach to playing, you don't hear it as much nearly when amplification started happening. And that is how to get the most sound out of a harmonica with no effects, no amps, no boxes, just playing it acoustically. Now, I know we're talking about Sonny Terry, but the two really are more related than a lot of people think. Sonny Terry is really a different approach for playing the same exact way. Sonny Terry is not really a clean single note player. He's a sound player. Because when you really look at these sort of things that he's playing, that really is not clean single notes. Clean single notes are... And Sonny Terry don't play that way. He plays... So your friend Roman is correct. Sonny Terry doesn't often play hole 6 as a clean single note. He generally plays it and includes most of hole 7. And there is that tongue block vamping, slapping, but it's a very narrow embouchure. Sonny Terry, in my opinion, played tongue blocking with a very narrow, pointy tongue. This sort of sound... That is tongue blocking using the narrow shake. So when you're hearing Sonny Terry with this... You're hearing a very small amount of tongue blocking because his tongue is very narrow and pointy, but you still can't get that kind of sound unless you're doing the tongue blocking. Sonny Terry apparently never figured out that if you open up your mouth wider and put more tongue down, you can get octaves. But you don't hear that in Sonny Terry's playing. I have never, ever heard a 4-hole octave split listening to Sonny Terry. Sometimes you can hear a narrow 3-hole split occasionally in some of his playing, which makes sense if you're playing with a very narrow pointy tongue, but not the 4-hole. So we owe the 4-hole octave split from Sonny Boy 1 more than any other player, but the narrower split from Sonny Terry. Both of the players had the control and command of playing with dirt. Dirt meaning everybody knows what a clean single note is. But if you add a little bit of the next whole, that's playing with dirt. Sonny Terry and Sonny Boy One were masters at adding in very small, sometimes large amounts, but they were improvising with how they use dirt in their playing. That is not something you hear modern players do. Like, for example, here's a Sonny Boy One phrase over the 4 chord. This sort of... You don't never hear him play it that way. You hear him play it... So he's adding in dirt much of the time when he's playing. Same thing with Sonny Terry. It's really how they blur the line from a clean single note to a chord, and they do it continuously when they're playing. I think in Sonny Terry's mind, when he's going... I think he thinks maybe he's doing something comparable to octave. Because it is a similar big sort of sound, but it's not quite the same. It definitely is very different when you compare the two. But that really is how to make sense out of Sonny Terry, where he belongs in the harmonica world, and Sonny Boy One, who had a bigger sound. He was a big sound and tone player, and a little bit less so with Sonny Terry because you don't hear the octave splits. So that's the long explanation for Sonny Terry, and you got to include Sonny Boy One because they both developed their sound before amplification was common, and that is why it's very hard to sound like them, because they were doing things that modern players don't tend to do. Modern players want to do things clean notes, clean splits. They don't want that stuff blurred together. And you hear everything blurred together with Sonny Terry and Sonny Boy One.
Це було цікаво, це було круто. Андрію, чи може нам Джо запропонувати якусь вправу, якийсь челендж для нашої української спільноти, нашого телеграм-каналу? Можливо, якщо є півхвилинки, як він відноситься до фільму Crossroads? Ну, можливо, якщо в нас є трохи часу, Джо заграє щось для нас, своє щось, що на душі. Можливо. Але ми не будемо наполягати. Будь ласка.
Okay. So, very beautiful answer from you to our player, and pretty sure he uses the same embouchure as Sonny Terry, so very little tongue blocking, so it will be very easy for him, and that's beautiful.
Nice.
So now for next question. It's really special. We ask this each time for our guests, and this question is about harmonica challenge. So we have a harmonica community group in one of the messengers, and the challenge goes every week, and we have different topics. So what would you suggest for us to make as a harmonica challenge?
Well, I would just say the train imitation, because I think it's the easiest thing anybody can do, and it also it's symbolic of something very special. I have always found that people are attracted to the sound of the harmonica for 2 reasons. They either like the pyrotechnics, the fast, flashy speed. You could actually say that Sonny Terry's whooping thing is full of pyrotechnics because there's so much crazy stuff going on. Or they're attracted to the sound of the harmonica because they can't believe something so small could sound so big. And the harmonica train is really hits the bullseye of that. Watch and listen to the video of D. Ford Bailey live doing his Pan American Blues and tell me that that's not captivating, that one-handed, less than 5 foot tall dude could get that kind of huge sound out of the harmonica. No effects, no tricks. So it's easy to do. It's all about chords and rhythm, and the bigger you can make the sound of the harmonica train, in general, the more skillful you are as a player, learning how to open up and really resonate in your head and in your throat while maintaining rhythmic precision with your breathing. And it's always my favorite thing. Simple as can be. It's what I introduce to beginners.
Like a fox shuffle.
Not quite the same. Not quite the same. The fox chase is more about maintaining a groove. And the train is more just about rhythmic sound. It's more like, I'll give you a real quick example.
Cool. Thank you very much. It's very nice.
Thank you. Yeah, no bending, but definitely a lot of breath control, a lot of rhythm. I didn't even use my right hand. I could have gotten a darker sound if I'd have used my hand to add to that, but it's just kind of the idea that really, keep the focusing on how you're breathing, how you're using your mouth, how you're creating resonance with your mouth and your throat, in your head and all. So that's the thing. And I try very hard. I want to be the world's slowest harmonica player. I wish somebody would give me that title, the world's slowest harmonica player. But that was pretty fast, so there's a lot of fast stuff that's going on in that train imitation.
That's a mouse-shaped masterpiece, I would say.
What's your opinion about movie Crossroads?
It was very influential on me. I've watched it many times. Sonny Terry's harmonica playing on it was very influential. Hearing that. Very influential.
От навіщо нужна права рука, коли вона була саме там, коли потрібно. Класно. Joel, thank you very much. Thank you. It was very cool. Thank you for your time, for your music, for your teaching. Ми тут в Україні віримо, що все в нас буде добре, і завдяки таким людям ми тримаємося і будемо грати, будемо щасливі. Усім нагадую, що гармоніка дарує щастя. Thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you so much. And
I want to thank you, gentlemen. It has been a tremendous pleasure for me to share my passion with both of you. I felt nothing but 100% complete love and respect from both of you. I thought the questions were fantastic. I really hope and pray that we can get this war figured out and solved in a manner that is acceptable to you Ukrainian people. You guys are really amazing. I feel I'm very humbled that you guys are speaking multiple languages and I can barely speak English. I only hope that my passion, I hope you feel the love and it helps you get through these challenging times. If you want to have a follow-up and have me go over some other stuff, I'm very open to doing that. I really enjoyed this time. It was wonderful for me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
thank you so much, Joe. Thank you.
Побачимося наступного разу, да.
God bless you. God bless
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.